get started. So for the folks who don't know what Perplexity is, just a quick overview, we are an AI-powered answer engine. So instead of giving 10 blue links, we do our best to provide succinct answers sourced from reliable corners of the web, and we power that in real time. And to clarify, we're not an LLM company, but we are powered and we partner with all the best LLM companies out there. And the way that we do that is that all of that, the LLMs power our answers to make it as succinct and digestible as possible. So you take that information to act on it. And last but not least, we always source where we get our information from. So if you want to check your sources, if you want to specify where you're getting information from, I will go through all of that today. It's great to see a variety of roles here today. I'll go over all those four that we discussed today, like getting ideas, sourcing information, doing better research, just being able to use AI tools overall in your day-to-day. And we're really all about making sure that you're empowered with the right knowledge rather than spending a lot of time searching for the information that will make your job easier. Janetta, confirming that you can see my Perplexity page?
Yes, I can. Looks great.
Great, thanks. All right, so our product vision is that we really want to be one unified place where all knowledge workers go to search across the web. Internal knowledge sources, we just recently launched app connectors to Google Drive, SharePoint, OneDrive, and I believe we're testing out Box and Dropbox. Let us know if you'd be interested in that. And we also have a lot of great app connectors on the roadmap as well, like Notion, Slack, GitHub, etc. And we also can connect to proprietary data sources that you're subscribed to. So there's a lot more on the roadmap, but we currently connect to Crunchbase, FactSet, etc. So for this one unified place, I just want to share how I use it as from a day-to-day as a product marketer. So maybe to quickly dive in, I'm going to hide this panel just so we can focus it on here. Maybe let's show what we can do. I always think about, like, if I had my own dedicated research analyst, what would I want to ask them? So maybe let's say I'm going to pretend, is anyone a Silicon Valley TV show fan? I'm going to say maybe like I love that show. It's so funny. Sometimes it hits a little too real. But let's say Pied Piper is about to go IPO. And I want to say, all right, list all the IPOs from this year. Give me details of company communication strategies and marketing channels and campaigns around the IPOs. All right, let's see. So what I also love about Perplexity is that some chat LLMs, you really have to kind of fine tune how you ask questions, but Perplexity really breaks it down and tries to figure out what you're asking. So if you click into the tasks, you can see that we're breaking it down to really get you all the right information. So it's finding a list of IPOs, reading all these different sources, researching company communication strategies for those IPOs, and then also researching marketing channels and campaigns used for them. And then it's going to take its time to write the answer in a digestible way. And this is sourcing 42 different sources. So IPOs in 2025, notable companies, CoreWeave was a big one last week. Let's see, communication strategies around IPOs. That's giving us narrative building, media and digital presence, investor relations, etc. You can see which bullet is sourcing what information. But let's just say I want to dive in a little bit deeper. I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to further check the other sources that it is sourcing the information from. All right. Thank you for highlighting the compliance considerations, really important for IPOs. Role of an AI and IPO in communication. Great. Okay, so this is more sourcing the web, and I mentioned earlier that it can also source your internal documents. So let's say Pied Piper already has a communication strategy. Pied Piper IPO. I'm going to share this. All right, and I'm going to say, Great. Looking at these communication strategies, can you take a look at our communication strategy and give feedback on how to approach our IPO go-to-market? All right. So now it's going to take the reference from our initial question, and this is a follow-up question that we're asking. We're asking it to reference that file that we just uploaded to give a little bit more context. So again, in the tasks, it's breaking it down by Piper. So it took a look at our doc. This is our communication strategy, or Pied Piper's communication strategy. All right, it's giving me strengths of our current strategy, audience-specific messaging, phase communication plan, and I love that it's giving me areas for improvement. So strengthen thought leadership, enhance investor engagement, etc. I'm really lucky to have a Janetta to always bounce ideas off of, but let's just say I just want to make sure that my strategy is airtight. I always bring it into Perplexity. It's sourcing real-time information. It's also sourcing the best practices that you can find online as well. I also love it when Perplexity puts things into tables, super easy to digest. And sometimes if it doesn't automatically populate in a table, you could just say, hey, Perplexity, can you put this in a table? And we will do that for you. My personal little favorite detail about Perplexity is that you can ask follow-up questions that you might not be thinking about. Great, maybe I didn't think about how we want to have personal communication strategies for C-suite executives. You can just click the follow-up message and then it will populate. All right, I'm gonna let that run, but as marketers, both on internal agency, I mean, anyone and everyone, we do a lot of market research. Running markets evolve super quickly. There's always a lot of news, new entrants, etc. Even maybe like, let's just say agencies. We got put on a new project. We don't really know the industry. It's really great to get up to speed to know what is out there. So maybe let's say you have a new client that is a SOC 2 security company. So let's ask Perplexity, can you provide a list of SOC 2 security companies, when they were founded, their strengths and weaknesses that customers have shared, as well as current marketing campaigns and their positioning? All right, let's see what Perplexity is going to find. So again, this is a little bit of a longer question. I'm asking a bunch of things. You can see that the tasks are a little bit more than that initial one that I shared. Identifying all the companies, finding the years of each that was founded in each one, just to better understand. It's going to research the strengths and weaknesses, investigating current marketing campaigns, I love that it's automatically giving it to me in a table. So it looks like there are some firms that are helping customers with security, strengths, weaknesses, marketing campaigns, and positioning. And I know a lot of companies do a lot of competitive research. Curious to know, maybe, Jeanette, I think we had that poll, which competitors we want to research today.
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. Let me just launch that. So let's get a little bit of feedback from the audience. So which competitors should Jimmy query? Who should we search for? All right. You have like 15 seconds to choose. All right.
Classic marketer dilemma of Salesforce versus HubSpot.
We should have done Hooli versus Pied Piper, right?
Yeah, that would be a good one. Maybe there won't be enough information on the web to find information for you.
Okay, all right. I'm about to end this poll. 3, 2, 1. Let's see. Who are we going to research? The audience has decided that it will be Salesforce versus HubSpot.
All right. We clearly have marketers on this
clearly
call
we have
today.
a lot of marketers.
All right. Let's say. So I just want to get to know the competitors quick. Maybe I am audacious and I want to enter the CRM industry. So let's say conduct a competitive research between Salesforce and HubSpot. I want to understand the difference between their marketing, positioning, the key products and features that they offer, and types of customers that they have. Oh, let me try to do that again. Okay. Conduct a competitive research between Salesforce and HubSpot. I want to understand the differences of their marketing, positioning, key products and features, and types of customers. There we go. Love my dictation tool. I can type fast, but with this many folks on the webinar, I don't want to be judged on my typing skills. All right. Already checking 45 sources. Huge contentious debate amongst marketers in the past few years. I'm sure there's a lot of information to look through. Okay, that was pretty quick. It shared positioning for each company. I love that it broke down into the different feature areas, comparing the companies between Salesforce and HubSpot. Customization. All right, there's a moment of truth. Salesforce, highly customizable workflows. And then HubSpot, limited customization, but offers flexible workflows and templates. I'm curious to know if everyone agrees with this statement. Maybe we can see if New Target Inc. actually captured that correctly. AI capabilities, that one's going to be evolving, and target customers. All right, pricing. This is contentious because I know they love to charge an arm and a leg. Subscription-based pricing, robust capabilities for enterprise needs. HubSpot provides tiered pricing plans. That is true. Okay, more transparent compared to Salesforce layered add-ons. And then that's a quick summary. So I think that's pretty good. I'm curious to know what folks in the chat think. Okay, so what I shared was Perplexity's main chat function. Janetta likes to call it level 1, and now we're going to take you to level 2 into Spaces. So Spaces is essentially a place where you can get very specific in what you will want Perplexity to search through. And it's also really good for continuous research, repetitive research questions. I've recently been doing a little bit more work as a product marketer on our API product, Sonar. And I essentially have given it instructions on the side and said, hey, you're a product marketer that creates great marketing collateral to lead people to buy the product or use it, learn more about the product, reference all the content in the link and file sources about our API, and make sure you synthesize the technical information in a digestible manner. Also take a look at our existing content to make sure that we maintain the same tone and voice. That one's always important and makes a huge difference because we always want to make sure that whatever the output is giving us a good place to start from. And tone and voice, it takes time to curate, and we want to make sure it's consistent. So I am going to go into my files. So you can add local files directly from your desktop, but then you can also add them to add files from your apps that you have connected. So I have all the emails that I've written on API communications, documentation changes. I recently just got an updated product roadmap. So let's see. We got the roadmap. I also recently have done a webinar on our API. I'm just going to add in our chat log. I'll get an email when the sync is complete, but this is generally pretty quick. When it's just a couple of files. We have some customers that have thousands of files, and that might take a little bit of time to parse, but you can show the status there. It's all ready. And then links, I have added our announcement blog about Sonar, all of our documentation, our webpage, and then another blog about our recent updates.
Can I just and Jenny and call it out? A few people are asking in the questions around specifying sources. So,
Uh-huh.
so spaces is a great way in that link to specify the domains that you want Perplexity to search for when it's giving you a response. So again,
Correct.
this has to be a publicly facing web page that is accessible without, say, like a subscription. But then you can define those links, and then Perplexity will prioritize those domains in its response, kind of like Jenny did here.
Exactly. Exactly. And in a space, it doesn't mean that we're disregarding the web. It means that we're, like Janetta mentioned, we're prioritizing the files and the links. But you can also ask Perplexity in this space to only source the files. So let's say that webinar chat log. I'm going to say, we recently just hosted a webinar on APIs. Can you create an FAQ based on the questions in the chat log and make sure all answers are coming from our developer docs and the links I provided? Because folks talk about our API online, but I don't necessarily want our answers about our API sourced from those. I want to make sure that we are creating this Q&A from our most up-to-date information. We update our docs pretty frequently. So it's going to source the webinar chat log. It's reading that document that I provided from Google Drive, extracting questions from the chat log. I'll also be doing this with our chat log today. So if we don't get to your questions, we will make sure that we send out FAQs and a recording after this as well. You can see that it's reading only Perplexity sources and it's not sourcing anything else from the web. If you also want to just look at all the sources, there is a top page that you can look at. All right. So it shows Perplexity pages, Sonar, docs, but then there's also more results if you want to add them in. But again, we want to focus them on our links only. So it's pulling the questions, providing the answers. It's sourcing our chat log and then our information as well from our documentation changes, etc.
Can I jump in and make a comment?
Please, yeah.
On the sources. So as you all can see, Perplexity is citing the Google Drive files in its response. So if you want to go to that Google Drive file, you'll be able to click in and view it. And this is the Perplexity Enterprise Pro version. So what that means is that if you enable Google Drive, it'll be available to your organization to connect to, but the file permissions are preserved. So you can share a link with somebody that maybe doesn't have access to a particular file and they can see the results. But if they want to ask further questions and continue querying, they actually will not be able to access those files, and Perplexity will not consider files that the user doesn't have access to when it's generating a response. So.
Yes. Great call out. That actually reminds me to call out that this is a great place to collaborate with teammates. So there's a difference between collaborating on a specific space versus sharing the results of a space. So if I want to say, okay, I want to invite Janetta to this space. All right, we invited her. Now, as a collaborator, she can edit the instructions, edit the files and links as well, but she also can't necessarily see the files if she doesn't have access to them. And then there's a difference between sharing the link within your organization or within with anyone. For admins who are Enterprise Pro users, you can also adjust that links can't be shared outside of your organization to make sure information is all contained.
That's a great call out, Jenny, because somebody actually asked a question about that. Like, oh, how can we make sure that if we're uploading proprietary files, how can we make sure that somebody doesn't accidentally share it outside of the organization?
Yeah.
If you have a Perplexity Enterprise account where you're collaborating with your team, you'll be able to, in the settings, turn off, for example, external sharing and to only allow users that are part of your organization to be able to view your files. Exactly.
Yep. So the way I got here is that you can head over to settings and you can go to permissions. And then within permissions, you can control access to who has files to upload to org file repository, and then sharing permissions. So if you don't want members to invite new users, you can disable that. If you don't want threads to be shared publicly, or pages or spaces, you can turn all of this on and off. This is actually for Perplexity's enterprise org. I'm not in a demo org, so I'm gonna leave that on. And then you can also toggle on and off, like which connectors you want to turn on and off. So let's say like I'm the administrator, head of IT. I really, I wanna make sure that I don't necessarily want Gmail activated yet. I can turn that on, off, and on here. Any other questions around spaces that came in the chat?
So some people were asking whether Perplexity only integrates with Google Drive. So we have connectors to OneDrive, SharePoint, Dropbox, Box, and we actually have a lot of really cool connectors coming in the future as well. So
yeah.
Yeah, so some questions there. So I'll just mention that we answered that live. Can the person you've shared the space with see all past threads and questions? That's another good question.
So you can share specific threads with them, or you can choose to not. For example, if I collaborate with Janetta on a thread or a space, she won't necessarily see these threads unless I share that with her.
You have to go in and explicitly like click into a thread, and then if you go back, Jenny, to one of those, then you'll be able to share a particular thread in a space, and then I would be able to see it.
Yep. So I have asked Cameron, who is on the Perplexity team, who manages our social media. This was his space, and I asked him to share only 4 a few specific threads, but he has many more threads from this. One thing I also like about the collaboration tool, let's see, what is one? Let's say I'm not necessarily on this project, but I want to know what Janetta is looking at. I can go into a shared thread and subscribe to know what new threads are happening in this. All right, one thing that I didn't quite touch on is more of like the content generation ideas. Yes, I did highlight the webinar chat FAQ one, but let's say, all right. So let's look at our sources. I want it to source the web and the prioritized files and links here, and say, can you provide some blog ideas on what we should write about to showcase our upcoming API roadmap? Make sure these blog ideas are also relevant to what is being discussed in developer communities as well. All right. So this always gives me a good starting point. I feel like if you just ask an LLM to say, write me a blog post, it might not get your product nuances. It might not necessarily know exactly what is recent and what is being discussed on developer communities, API communities, and it'll give you a bunch of ideas. You know, the focus, developer ideas, let's see. Building low latency solutions with an API. I like that because it's not necessarily focused on our API, but it's highlighting a little bit more thought leadership. Okay, so maybe let's say I liked idea number 4. Great, I love idea number 4. Please build a blog outline with a main thesis, a challenge, a solution, and supporting evidence, sourcing our developer docs and marketing materials. Make sure to keep the same tone. Maybe for an outline, you don't necessarily need the tone, but I'm gonna put that in. All right. And this is always a good place to start to understand what the outline is. Maybe it doesn't get every little detail right, but it's always a good place to start to brainstorm, bring to cross-functional partners, always bringing things to my PM to say like, hey, like just to gut check, how are we looking on positioning certain value props that we want to highlight, and then highlighting supporting evidence. So I can also bring this to my content team and they have a great place to start. Okay. Any other questions about spaces that we saw in the chat, Janetta? We'll save time for Q&A, but I want to move on to deep research next.
Yeah, I think we can move on because there were actually some questions on deep research. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. So in the search bar, you may have seen that you can toggle between Pro, which is generally like it's a deeper dive into questions compared to our free version. Our free version is really optimized for speed and more so latency, and Pro really goes through multiple sources. Like you saw, that question went through 50 sources, but what if I told you that we can do deep research that can link hundreds of sources? And this is when you really want to go deep on a specific topic. Like Janetta mentioned, I used to work at Ramp, and expense management, really crowded space. May or may not have seen a couple of rivalries on San Francisco buses and ads. Always a fun time. And I want deep research to kind of look and dive deep into a few companies, a market. So let's see what this looks like. Conduct a competitive research between expense management players, Ramp and Brex. I want to understand the differences in their marketing, their positioning, key products and features, types of customers that they have. And I want to make sure that this research is built to provide suggestions and to build a differentiated expense management platform and its go-to-market strategy. Oh, okay. I'm maybe had too much coffee and my dictation didn't necessarily hear me correctly. All right, I want to understand the differences. Want to make sure that this research is built to provide different suggestions and provide suggestions to build differentiated expense management go-to-market strategy. So I have deep research enabled. This is going to take, we share up to 30 minutes. You can always enable notifications because it really wants to go deep into different sources, corners of the web, potentially even your Google files. It's going to take a few minutes, but I did run this query last night. You can see, if you go to your library on the left-hand side, you can also see all the previous queries you've ran. Hopefully there's nothing embarrassing on here.
You can also search for like Brex as well. Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah, it's right here. So 156 sources just for this one report. And you can also see that it went through 54 different tasks. I personally think it's so cute to see how the AI talks to itself to get you the best research report. Okay, based on the user's request for competitive research, I'll begin by searching information about Ramp's positioning. And then it also went down. You can see that it's going through Ramp first and then Brex. So you can see how it's going about its search. They said, I'm quite impressed with the depth of information. I'm glad you're impressed by yourself, LLM. And then it compared companies, then found market opportunities. And you can see that this answer is much more in depth. It's going through the different comparisons, the product suite, the key feature differentiators, Ramp's customer base versus Brex's customer base, and differentiation. I love that it's giving me underserved segments. This is a great place to go after. Technology-driven differentiation and recommended go-to-market strategy. Love the suggestion on vertical specialization because different finance teams have different needs. Definitely got that spot on. Integration first approach. So you can see that it's pretty long. So it does take a little bit of time, but it's definitely worth the wait, especially if you just want to go deep into a specific topic. research. I would be curious to see what the HubSpot versus Salesforce query would look like here. But hopefully
you won't believe it, but I'm about to share this HubSpot and query link with you if you
okay, yes. Are you
because actually somebody in the chat, I'm actually going to drop it. Should I drop it into the chat?
Yeah, drop it in the chat and make sure it's
Or-
shared with the share, like you can publicly share it so our attendees can see it.
Perfect. All right, attendees. So here's a deep research query on Salesforce versus HubSpot. So somebody called it out earlier in the chat and it made me intrigued, and it just finished running. So people were like, hey, why didn't you use deep research to run this competitive analysis?
Yeah, great call.
Perplexity reasoning. And I was like, oh, let's see how it performs.
Yeah, I think pro search is really like, I gotta run to a meeting. I don't quite know about CRMs. I just want to get smart on this topic really fast. But deep research definitely goes through very more in depth, looks at the different, breaks it down by each player, customer preference patterns.
It just has like a lot of tasks also in the task tab that you can see.
Yeah, 49 tasks.
Yeah, like I like to call it like Perplexity's to-do list of what it needs to do to come up with this research report. And it does take a while to run, you know, it can take anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes to run a deep research query. And think about like how computationally intensive that is, how long it would take a human to run all those searches, to synthesize all of that information, and Perplexity is just doing it for you at a super fast speed in the background. And by the way, you will also get notification emails once a deep research query finishes running.
Yeah. Or you can go and run to get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. That is, how are we doing on time, Janetta?
We have about slightly less than 10 minutes left. So we could jump into Q&A.
Yeah, let's do it. What are any ones that kind of popped up more often?
We have so much Q&A and so much great great feedback and questions in the chat as well. So just a reminder, everybody, there's a lot of chats happening in the chat. So if you have a question, drop it into the Q&A and we'll look through a few good questions to answer. So for example, here's a question. Where does Perplexity get the customer insights and the competitive analysis from? So the answer to that is Perplexity searches the sources that you ask it to search. So primarily that is going to be searching the web, but you are also able to connect Perplexity to, for example, certain proprietary data sources, so Crunchbase or FactSet. So if you had access to those subscriptions, you can actually plug in certain subscriptions into Perplexity and search those. So that's one question. Let's see. And Jenny, feel free if you see some question that you like.
Yeah. Also, please don't be sad. I saw someone said like you haven't answered my question. We will make sure that we follow up with the recording and frequently answered asked questions. So sorry if we can't get to all of them. Thanks so much for everyone's questions.
How much flexibility do you have? Oh, this one I like. How much flexibility do you have in personas, such as create competitive analysis from the perspective of job title, industry, and so on? What I like to say is Perplexity is going to be as creative as you are. So you can be as creative as you want. You can be like, okay, I am a kindergarten teacher and I want you to write things for me that a kindergartner would understand. Or you could say, oh, I'm a PhD researcher and an expert on this topic. This is the persona. This is how you should be giving the output in your response. So yeah, as creative as you want to be. Industries, same thing.
That is a great call out.
Mm-hmm.
I would also just say, like, if you think it, definitely just ask it and play around with it.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else is asking a question around spaces. So they're asking how many gigabytes of memory size is in the spaces. So actually you can upload, and again, this is on the Perplexity Enterprise version, you can upload up to 5,000 Google Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint files per space. Each file has to be 25 megabytes or less. That's something to keep in mind. And the files that work are PowerPoint, SharePoint, PDF, Excel, CSV, those kinds of files Perplexity can query.
Someone was asking, they want to analyze hundreds of URLs and files. Can Spaces interpret Excel files and URLs? Absolutely. We support all different types of files, PDFs, docs, PowerPoints, etc., and we will parse through them to get an answer for you.
If you're putting in hundreds of URLs into your prompt, that will not work. So you'll probably want to download those documents and add them to a Google Drive or OneDrive. I think there's about anywhere from 10 to 20 URLs that you can upload into a space. One of the questions, so we have questions around, how do I know if my answer is, like, how can I check the accuracy of the response that Perplexity generates? So Jenny, if you go into like a non-deep research query, like maybe one of the queries that you started with today, what you'll be able to do is, maybe not a blog one, just like a regular web search.
How's the IPO one?
There we go. Perfect. So what you can do now is if you highlight a piece of text, you will actually be able to check sources. Yeah. So what Perplexity will do is it'll actually pull in the various sources that Perplexity used to generate the response. So a lot of times you'll see that Perplexity searched through 50 sources, but you'll see only a few citation bubbles appended to the end of a sentence. This way you can highlight specific pieces of text and really dive into the sources and say, oh, maybe like you want to dig into this particular source over another one. This is actually a really cool underrated feature that we just recently launched. So play around with it. Just a couple call outs. So right now it doesn't work on deep research. So you'll have to specifically do like a non-deep research query to look at these sources, but it's really, really cool.
I love this one. It
Yeah,
really
yeah.
focuses on kind of if you want to fact check the resources and whatnot.
Yes. Yes. Oh, and we're getting comments in the chat. Oh, we love that. As a content marketer, I want to be courses. Yeah, exactly. We know, and our team is constantly building better and better search features because we know that people love using Perplexity for search, and they like Perplexity because it is grounded in sources.
Yep. Non-Perplexity related, someone was asking what voice assistant I use. I use Whisperflow, WISPRFLOW. It's great to just voice to text. Sometimes my fingers don't move as fast as my brain. And it's great for demoing on virtual workshops and webinars.
Yeah. Other questions were around like the different AI chatbots as well, like how Perplexity stands out. One of the things that I do want to call out on Perplexity is that we connect to a variety of foundation models. So not only does Perplexity connect to OpenAI's, GPT models, but we also connect to Anthropic, Google Gemini. We have our own version of DeepSeek. And maybe Jenny, if you can show the toggles in the search. Yeah, so if you click on that, you can choose the model. So those are the models. And then if you scroll a little bit down, you can also see the reasoning models as well. So they're all there. That's a really powerful feature of Perplexity. So we know all of these companies like Anthropic are never going to have, an OpenAI model on their platform and vice versa, but Perplexity is always going to give you the best models and you can play around with it. And then another question was like, which model do I choose? Well, even
I love that question.
Yeah, I love that question. So Perplexity understands that the reality is that most people, and maybe it's not the people that are on this webinar on how to use AI and like how to get like better and better in their day-to-day workflows, but for most people, they don't want to think about which model to choose. And so if you just choose best by default, Perplexity is actually going to do that analysis on the back end and identify, is this more of a reasoning query, or is this a very straightforward query that needs a really quick and fast response? So if you select best, then Perplexity will choose the model for you.
Yeah, one more point I want to add there is like these models are evolving so fast. They ship something new every day. And let's just say that like if one model says they are better at writing, or maybe customers and users are saying they're better at writing, the next evolution of the other LLM is going to say we're better at writing. So that's why we love partnering with these LLMs, because that then just powers a better answer for Perplexity answers. All right. I think we're at time. Really appreciate everyone's questions and participation. And if there's something that you wish that I wanted to demo, try it out yourself. Just head over to perplexity.ai. I am super glad that some of you, looks like a lot of you found it resourceful. Janetta, thanks so much for being a great host and partner in crime, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.